Welcome in. This is the Champagne Room Live. I'm Illini Isaac. It is Thursday, June 11th. I'm joined by Mike Carpenter, formerly of the 200 level. The 200 level is Mike Carpenter, fanboy Carp. So we have a handful of things we're going to talk about. And Mike, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. It's summer break, so I'm chilling. I have not thought a whole lot or talked certainly about much Illini sports. So I'm fresh, man. I'm ready. I am refreshed, and yeah, good to talk with you again, though. Appreciate you having me.
No, absolutely. I'm super excited because obviously we've known each other for a while now. And I was just thinking this morning. So I would have met you at 93.5 in 2019, I
Yeah, I
think.
think that's right.
So that's when I started interning on Jeremy's show and then Tay and Carp. And funny story, I think I've already mentioned this to you, but I just was thinking about it. I came into like job shadow and to see like, oh, is this place I would want to intern at? And like Austin Berkland was awesome. He's like, yeah, come in, check it out. And I was in the studio, we were just chit chatting or whatever. And then I think you came in from school and
Mhm.
you were it was me and like somebody else job shadowing, and you were like, hey, there's coffee and other things like in the kitchen if you want. And I was like, oh
No
no,
one
that's
ever
all right.
took me up on the coffee.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's all right, I'm good. And I
Yeah.
thought, and I was like, oh shoot, I think he thinks that I just like was gonna ask him for coffee or like turned him down for coffee. But you were really just saying
Oh
like, feel free to
no.
grab whatever's in the fridge.
Yeah, dude, we had this deal with Columbia Street Roastery. So they would bring in
Mm.
these boxes full of those little like single use
Odd things, right?
packets. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
package. Yep, yep.
The pods, not like a Keurig, but they were like these little coffee filter pod things. And
Mhm.
we had that coffee machine in the so and anytime an intern came in, I just felt like one of the few things we could offer in the studio was coffee,
Yeah.
but no one ever took me up on it. So like that was always my thing. That was I the last year would get done with school. I would drive to the studio. I'd get my afternoon run in and get back right at about 3:50 or 3:55, make my coffee, and then we do the show. So yeah, I do believe you came in 2019. I would have been around for maybe a half year longer before I
Yeah.
got the axe. And but in fairness to that, I mean, God, COVID was around the corner.
Yep.
That messed with school, probably would have messed with the show in some way. So like the days were numbered. But you being on that show was definitely planted a seed when I did the 200 level as to who would be someone that'd be valuable to come on and
Yeah.
play second mic. And you did a great job with that. And now you got this thing going on. So it's really cool to see.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. Definitely like me getting into this and everything definitely is a lot of roots back to like the 200 level and those reaction shows in the basement and stuff in your old place. And again, yeah, we could sit and go back about all these memories and stuff, but definitely wanted to get you back on here. And first, if you want to talk about, so you wrote a book that I'm sure a lot of people know about, and I have one, and a lot of my family and friends have them. So, sort of, what made you decide to add to the book, and then just tell us, what's it about, where can people find it, that sort of stuff.
Sure. Can we do product placement?
Perfect.
You
There
know,
you
it's the
go.
new one because there's a little blue label, and I tried not to mess with the cover too much. I was trying to think,
Got
how
it.
can I differentiate it? But the latest 200 level book is the 2026 postseason edition. I cannot call it the Final Four edition. That is
Hmm.
copyright. You can't use March Madness. You can't use NCAA tournament. You can't use the road to the Final Four, any of that. So, like, very bland addendum, but it's
Mhm.
about 35 new pages worth of the last season. And I wrote the bulk of it the week leading up to UConn. Like, I knew I was going to be at the ready.
Mm.
If once they beat Houston, I thought, okay. Because you knew what was in front of us, and you knew it
Right.
was a decent likelihood that they would beat Iowa. And I don't think that's talking out of school, though I do
No.
appreciate Brad Underwood, as honest as he was with Jeremy and Joey, about how nervous he was. I
Yeah.
appreciate that because I get it. And then they beat Iowa, and the very next day I was like, "Oh, and it just flowed out. And I was lucky that I had a student teacher in takeover mode. And when you have that as a cooperating teacher, you're there, but they're running the show
Mm.
and they actually want you to be out of the room. So I got a little desk outside of the classroom in case something goes down. Nothing did because I had an amazing student teacher. and I'm doing a little bit of grading, and then it's like, okay, well, I got some time to. So I
Mhm.
knocked that out pretty quick, and the UConn loss did not, in all honesty, change a whole lot of the
Yeah.
overall narrative, because I think, and I'm interested if you agree with this. Brad Underwood in year 9 making a Final Four was such a sense of validation for what he's built so far, that losing to UConn, I could not even put on my top 10 list of most crushing Illini losses. I just can't, because having arrived there and feeling like, oh yes, you can make Final Fours, and this coach and his staff can, I think took such a weight off that it was actually, no matter what happened that Saturday or Monday if they made it, was going to be something worth writing about. So it's at Game Day Spirit locally. I'd encourage people to support local business. Go to Game Day Spirit, either location. And then for those outside of Champaign-Urbana, it's on Amazon, and you can get hardcover, paperback, or Kindle too.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna snag a copy. And I agree, it was when people say, "Oh, this loss is win or this game is win-win," like if we win, it's obviously gonna be amazing, and if we lose, we're gonna be okay. There's not many times where you can honestly say that. I feel like a lot of times it's a coping mechanism. Oh, we're house money or whatever. But that did really feel like that because we had made it that far. And the only thing you were sad about was more like, oh, shoot, I don't get to watch this team play. I don't get to watch Keaton anymore. I don't get to watch Kylan and some of these guys, Ben, at that point in the season. Like, I don't get to watch this team play anymore. And it was less of that's so depressing because I think a big part of it too is that we saw who Michigan was and how they beat the brakes off of Arizona. So, and you and I and Trevor talked about this, like, it would have been fun, obviously so fun to beat UConn, but then you're like, okay, if you go to Monday night and Michigan whoops you like they did a month or two ago prior, then how are you feeling about the season? Like, just to be so much closer to the national title and know Michigan's waiting, and then if that would have gone like we would have thought, it would have been disappointing. So I agree. I was
Well,
at the game, and it was not at all like, oh my gosh, that's so soul crushing.
well, and then after Illinois UConn happened, and it's like, oh, uh, I don't want any part of that. Like
Yeah.
the way Michigan just beat the brakes off of Arizona. And, I would understand if someone were to say, well, come on, man, like national championship or bust, or, what, you're okay losing in the Final Four. It's not that I'm okay with it. I think it's more that this team was very good. I don't
Mhm.
know if they were national title good.
Mm-mm.
And what they did is they, I think, exceeded the expectations we had for them. And at the very peak of what they were doing in mid to late January, leading up to, I think, February 1st was Nebraska. And then there was that slide. But for that 2 to 3 week stretch, I think some of us were like, oh, could this be a Final Four team? Like the most we ever would have bandied about at their peak that part of the year was, are they Final Four caliber? We all knew that next echelon that would have been tough. They, I think, finished what, fourth on Ken Pom. I
Mhm.
think they finished fourth on Bart Torvik. They were what everything said they were. And for them to close out the season in the way that they did and basically hit that mark, I think answers so many concerns that and I think a lot of other people had about, could Brad Underwood break through that ceiling? And sometimes I do feel with coaches that when you do it once, and the way he was speaking to Jeremy and Joey about it, there is a sort of ceiling that breaks that I think. I'm not going to say it's going to be easier to make it going forward, because we know it's a crapshoot in the tournament, but we're not going to feel the weight of the world on our shoulders each and every March anymore. And I don't think he and his staff are either. And they might not admit that they were feeling that, but there's no way they weren't. After Loyola and a few other losses, I think that was such an albatross to rid themselves of, and make it that much easier when they get their next year to maybe make yet another run.
Yeah, I really don't know what the monkey off the back would be now. I know as fans, we talk a lot about getting over the hump and just feeling so tense because you're like, oh my gosh, we just need a Final Four. It's been so long. Okay, we got that. Okay, take a deep breath. And when Brad first got here, it was okay. We got a banner. We won the Big Ten tournament. Oh, okay, we got a regular season banner. Getting those monkeys off the back and just being able to take a deep breath. So now it really feels like the only thing left is a national title, which has been, the problem in Illinois history forever. So having tournament success was really Brad's biggest bugaboo that fans and national people had against him. And now to be able to sort of check that off the list is super refreshing, and I think just takes a lot off of Brad and the staff and then fans as well.
Yeah, and I do want to be careful in saying that, I lived through the Frank Williams era when after his sophomore year, they made the Elite Eight, they lost to Arizona. And it was a big deal that next year, everyone that could come back came back. You lost Marcus Griffin and Sergio McLean, who had graduated, but everybody else is back. So they were preseason top five. They want to share the Big Ten again in Bill Self's second year. They got a 4 seed in the tournament and they lost in the Sweet 16. So it was a mild disappointment. It wasn't quite the encore that you were hoping for. This is not a national title or bust team. This is not a Final Four or bust team. To put those sorts of things on a team, even with this many guys coming back, is unfair given the nature of March Madness. But I view it this way when you look at coaches and their overall success. If you pull up their Wikipedia head coaching record and you see Elite Eight, Final Four, Elite Eight, Big Ten championship here, Big Ten tournament titles here, they start stacking up. And you think, damn, like that's a really good coaching tenure right there. So that was such a big addition to Brad Underwood's track record here at Illinois. And I think this team will accomplish something tangible this year. They will be the favorites in the Big Ten. They should be. I think they have a very good chance of winning the Big Ten. Looking at that schedule, it's so premature to say, but I think it actually worked out fairly well for Illinois with the single plays and everything. So they'll get something tangible this year. And I hope so in a way that they do as well, because that way when you get to March, that's another thing that takes a little bit of that edge off. Oh, they won the Big Ten regular season title. That's fun. Haven't done that since 2022. And you got a 2 seed. I mean, I just want to caution people so that we don't go into next year. You should be as excited as you want to be, but it shouldn't be the caveat of if this team doesn't make a Final Four, somehow they were a disappointment. I'm going to have to remind myself of that sometimes, but I do think that's true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's so much pressure to put on a group of guys, and I think the group they've put together, you should have a great shot at getting something tangible. And it's so refreshing too that even if we don't win the Big Ten or something like that, it's so refreshing too knowing you're bringing back a lot of guys. So it's easier to root for those guys. You feel more connected with those guys versus having a whole nother team and things like that, which obviously, what are your thoughts on sort of the retention, deciding to bring it back, like run it back, bringing in Vox? Like there's going to be a few new faces, but a lot of young guys, but a lot of the same. What are you feeling about the team going into next year?
It's huge, I think, because we, as college basketball fans, bemoan, and I think sometimes rightly so, the attrition at the end of each season for every team. All right. And Illinois with Brad Underwood has done a great job of navigating the transfer portal, but there have been painful departures before. Not so this year. And it reminds me a little bit of going into post-COVID, the 2021 season, when Io came back and Kofi came back, and you knew everybody else, and there was that excitement of those familiar faces and the sense of unfinished business. What's cool about this is not just the retention, but the fact that that last run of the year, I think, was such a good reminder that when this team was cooking in late December through January, they're really fun. And you have personalities that I think to their benefit are not the most PR trained individuals. I think that there's something kind of cool and refreshing about having guys be themselves and not be, and I say this as a Yankees fan, the Aaron Judges of the world, where everything is just vanilla and just so prepared and boring. So it is that coupling of, yeah, they're back and they're really good. And yeah, they're back and I like these guys. And I think the fan base really connects with them because they are just, they reminded me at parts last year, as cheesy as this may sound, and usually after a win and not after a loss. But they reminded me that it's just a game, and like they're really good at it, and it should be fun. And I do think that that is something that I'm going to really appreciate the most when we get closer to the season kicking off. Is not only do I get to watch a good team again, but I get to watch a bunch of guys that I feel familiar with. And I say this as someone that's going to be 40 in October. I'm double the age of these guys, and I'm still getting excited about seeing a 20-year-old on the basketball court and hearing what they might say after the game, because it's going to make me laugh, or it's going to make me feel like that's a person there and not just some kind of boring personality. So yeah, that mix, I think, makes this retention a little bit sweeter than ones that we've had before.
Now that it's been a couple months since the season wrapped up, being somebody that was, I would say, at the forefront, you didn't have a pitchfork with, with notes, like trying to throw at Brad Underwood's house, like get him off campus or whatever. But how does it feel? Because I would say I would definitely have resonated more with you and been more like, I love Brad, I don't want him to leave ever. But it does feel like we might have a ceiling with him. And then for him to break through that has been just really relieving, is the word I keep using. But sort of what's it been like kind of being able to I know we've texted about it, but like kind of come to terms with like, he exceeded my expectations. He proved for like 8 years or whatever, I didn't think he could get over that hump, but now he's proven he's gotten over the hump. And you and I and Trevor were texting a lot too, like just to see the raw emotion of Brad after the loss to UConn and like how he was throughout the season. And then clearly showing like, this is not salesman-y. Like he is just a basketball coach who's come up from JUCO and been all these hard places, and he just really loves basketball, loves winning, and loves the game, loves his players. So that's kind of a huge roundabout way of saying like, what's it kind of been like being proven wrong? Like as weird and non-aggressive as I can ask that question.
I'm glad. No, I admitted as such on the podcast and the book, and I want to own that because, I was vocal. But this year, here's the thing about this year that was interesting. I really tried to save my criticisms for games that I thought indicated that he wouldn't get over the hump. The most egregious example late in that regular season, and they were back to back. So the most egregious I thought was at UCLA, where you let that game get away from you. And there was the crazy run by UCLA, and you're like, just call a timeout. And then Michigan was the follow-up after that. And that twofer right there. And I wasn't alone. I mean, there was a big thud. It was like, damn, man, I thought we were really good. Are we? And then you lost to Wisconsin in the way that you did in the Big Ten tournament. And you still got the good seed because you earned it. You had a lot of good wins that suggested that you were very good. It's not just that they made the Final Four that makes me think, Brad, hey, man, you're the man, my bad. And I mean this, and I said it a million times. If there's a statue to be built, I will come over and help you guys mold that statue. Like, you need help, I'll chip in financially, whatever it may be. The way that he represented the university too, and this might sound hoity-toity or a little bit like, okay, I'm an alum and it means a lot to me, but and being a townie as well, but he said all the right things in the aftermath of making the Final Four. He kept saying it's not about me. It's about this fan base. It's about these guys. He was so appreciative of everyone else and downplayed his part almost completely. And this in the aftermath of out-coaching Kelvin Sampson, frankly, running circles around that game plan that Houston had, and withstanding Bennett Sturtz just going off, and then just staying the course when that was the right thing to do against Iowa, and it paid off. And there's not a thing in that UConn game as I look at it, and I don't think I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, that makes me think, Brad, you should have done this, that, or the other against UConn. I saw too many shots just simply not go in the hoop that had went in all year long for me to hold that against the coaching staff when it just was one of those days. So it was the way in which he kind of carried the flag for the program, for the fan base, represented things as well as anybody could have, that it would truly be one of those things. And if I saw him out of, I say, Coach, thanks for all you did this last year. It means a lot as an Illini fan. And I try to communicate that in the podcast and in the book. And I would understand how, after being critical, that could seem hypocritical on my part. But what I will take accountability for is I thought that these individual examples throughout the season indicated they were not going to make a run in the tournament, and they proved me wrong. And for them and for the fan base, and yeah, for myself, I'm happy, because it was just one of those truly awesome sports memories. And it happened, it was such a rush those couple weekends. It really was. And I don't know about you, but like, is there anything better than the week leading up to a Final Four, when you're in it, and you get 6 or 7 days of just knowing that to me, and I'd only experienced that once before as a conscious person, because in '89 I was 2.5 years old, but in '05, that whole week leading up to it was just one of my favorites, because it's just every day is just a little bit better. The sun's a little brighter. The spring warmth is a little warmer. It was terrific. And I'm just, he's the guy, he was the face at the end of the day that represented this whole thing as well as anybody could have.
Yeah, I was 7 when the 2005 team went to the Final Four, so I don't totally remember being like, oh my gosh, all week, this is amazing. But this year, definitely, just at work, people are just, pointing things out to me, asking me about the game, asking me if I'm going, all this stuff. And just knowing you're one of only 4 teams, like, making the Sweet 16 is awesome, but it's like, okay, there's 16 teams left. People don't take you as seriously. But yeah, that week leading up to the Final Four, where everybody knows the 4 teams left. A lot of people might not have known all the 16 teams left, but people know the 4 teams left. And the center stage is on you. And just, I'll never forget the sea of orange at Lucas Oil Stadium before the game got started, when they were doing the starting lineup intros and things. It's just, that was a scene I'll never forget. Literally like 70-some thousand Illinois fans for a basketball game. So that, yeah, it's a sight I'll never forget. And I think, yeah, just getting over that hump, seeing Brad's emotion, knowing a lot of guys are coming back. I think it's easier to root for and back these guys up. And another thought I've had is, like, people that might get on you or other people for kind of changing their tune once, like, they've been proven wrong. I would agree. I was proven wrong too by Brad, but it's way easier to be stubborn and lie to yourself and be like, oh, Brad's the guy, he's for sure going to do this. Or same thing with football before, Bielema was able to win a few bowl games in a row. It's like, you're lying to yourself if you have no doubt, but then also it's easier to just stay stubborn and not admit you're wrong, if that makes sense. So like in all of sports, so I think that leads me to my next question is, for you, how is fandom? I know you always were tailgating and going to a lot of basketball games and stuff. How is fandom going to change, you think? Or what's going to be the difference this fall once games get rolling and you're not doing the 200 level or anything?
I am so excited. I am just unencumbered. And this is my own doing. Like, I've been thinking about it for a while, like the last year, because I started to notice that when I would have a podcast scheduled, I wasn't looking forward to it as much. And I thought, well, come on. I walk down to my basement. I do a few little switches here and there, and then I just do it. This is not hard work. I'm talking sports. Why am I not looking forward to this? And then I'd be watching the games. And if it went well, great, I get to talk about something good. And if it didn't go well, I'd be like, oh, damn it, I got a podcast about this. And I thought, well, wait a second. All right, back to I'm going to be 40. Like, what am I doing here? In other words, because of me, but the podcast was kind of like a driving force in this, was losing just some of the simple fun of watching sports. And, I started talking about it in earnest when I was 16 at 107.1, starting with a summer internship. And from 16 to 20, I worked there. From my early 20s to the next decade at 93.5, I've been doing the podcast. So like more than half my life, I would not just watch the games, I would talk about them. And I think at a certain point, whether it's burnout or just feeling as if I was watching the games under this prism of oh, well, I gotta then talk about it and reflect about each and every game after it's done, started to just be fatiguing. And it was affecting, I think, the quality of what I was putting out. Maybe not terribly, but I did worry about if I keep doing this, there's going to be a law of diminishing returns. And then if I'm just mailing it in, listeners would know. And yeah, dude, I can't tell you how excited I am to go to the lots on a Saturday or Thursday or Friday, because it's just you never know anymore. And not know that the next day I don't have to talk about it. Like, just move on, tailgate, watch the game, go home. I cannot wait for that. And the same thing goes for basketball season, where if a game ends at 10 o'clock and it's, I could do a post game reaction or something. No, I'll go to bed. It's fine. And yeah, that was something in the back of my mind for a while. And I just said, man, I got to just bite the bullet. And it's been a lot of fun, but it was becoming less fun. And when talking about sports feels like a job, that's when it's time to, cut out and just enjoy being a fan again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about like last night I don't know if you watched the Knicks and
Oh,
Spurs. Like,
dude, I'm buzzing from it still.
yeah.
Incredible.
And I'm an objective watcher, but it's like, that is so fun to not have a dog in the fight and be able to just admire amazing basketball. Like the dudes that are the best at their craft in the world. Madison Square Garden was going crazy. And it probably would be less enjoyable if I knew I had to, do a podcast last night or whatever. And again, when you win, it's way better. And I think the losses are more so what get in the way. And one thought I had was, there's something from, like, obviously college sports have changed. I'm not trying to say maybe, I'm not implying NIL pushed you over the limit or like whatever, but
no, I get it. Yeah.
What do you think is like really changed the last couple years? Obviously, this was a big decision to retire the 200 level. And I know you've been talking to Trevor and I and saying like you were thinking about doing it less and less, or maybe like once a week, or like not doing reaction things, just weekly shows or whatever. So what was it? Was there something about this past season, or like what kind of pushed you over that edge to just cut clean and dry?
I don't think it's as much to do with NIL or any of that. I mean, listen, I could look at, let's say, the Brendan Sorsby mess at Texas Tech and just say, I give up. Because there are certain stories and things to do with college sports where, on one hand, I'm glad that these players are getting compensated. On the other, and call this naive, call it gullible, whatever, but at a certain point, money just gives me an ick factor.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I want enough to live comfortably and not have to worry about money, but the way that it drives everything can be, if you think about it too much, just disheartening. But that's not why. I think that the main driving factor behind it, other than the sports angle where it's like, well, I just want to watch the games and just be happy to be a fan again, are more to do with like mental bandwidth. And the way that I view it is, if you have creative pursuits, you have so much to put into them, and you have to delegate whatever remaining bandwidth you have. You need to allocate it. So if I'm doing the podcast, then that's taking some of that bandwidth away from me and the two guys in my band writing and recording songs for fun. That's taking away some of the bandwidth for me writing. And I got another book coming out this summer about Dave Matthews Band. And I've rediscovered that love for writing and just it pouring out. And I just found that, man, I just want to kind of give my brain a break from that and see how it might positively influence other things, or maybe help me discover something else that I enjoy doing creatively. So that's a very fair question. But as disheartening as some things about college sports can be, at the end of the day, we're lucky we're Illinois fans and we got a bunch of donors with all the money in the world. So I'm like, throw it around, boys. Give me the biggest scoreboard and give me Caton Hauser for 1 year for a few mil. Whatever. Pay Andre Stojakovic 4 or 5 mil. Not my money. That was not the main driving factor. But I'd be lying if I said that sometimes you just look at the way things are and how money rules everything and think, okay, I can't, if I'm going to enjoy watching these games, I can't think about it too much because it's just, that's what it's about, man. And I get it. I want to be reasonable about it, but I'd be lying if I said that it's not icky. I think it's kind of icky.
Yeah, no, it definitely changes things. And I do think in the off season is when you think about it more, and it is frustrating. In the middle of the season, I'm not really thinking about the money and all
Nah.
that. And the product is undoubtedly better. Like the guys that stay, the players that return. And I often think about that too. Like we are lucky as crazy as it sounds to say I'm lucky as an Illinois fan, considering our painful history at times, but we do have coaches that seem to be adaptable and coaches that seem to be able to work through the NIL era and transfer portal. And Josh Whitman seems to be at the forefront of all of it and basically atop of the Big Ten and leading that. So it would be a lot more concerning to be like a Maryland or, you know, a school in the AC, the middle or bottom of the ACC. So that is a blessing. And talking about the scoreboard, Kate Hauser, all that stuff, before we get off, I wanted to get your thoughts on football. And hopefully we'll have you back on here like in the fall, but what are your thoughts? I find myself some days feeling decent about it because it's Bielema. Hauser seems like he's going to be a great quarterback. And then other days I'm like, shoot, I think there's a way this goes 5-7. Where are you at with football, and what are your biggest concerns?
I don't have a lot of concerns. I think going 10 wins and 9 wins and winning 2 games, bowl games against SEC opponents helps that. And I would understand why there's not a whole lot of juice because you talk about retention. We did retain a lot of guys, but you lost your quarterback, and that makes sense. I mean, just Luke was the guy and an Illini legend. I grew up with Kurt Kittner, but I don't know. Luke's recency bias. Luke's the man. Kurt was too, but I digress. I actually am pretty excited because I think by coming off of 10 and 9 win seasons, I don't need another 10 or 9 win season. What I view this kind of as, and I think you and I and Trevor texted about this, this can be a ho-hum Iowa season. And what I mean by that is, what if this floor has been raised enough where they go 8-4 without breaking much of a sweat? And I'll be honest, I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that you have your quarterback. I think you're going to score points. I know that the defense, you know, the defensive line has rightly been a discussion of, hey, why didn't they go get this dude or that dude? But I think this far into the Bielema era, he's earned enough benefit of the doubt from me to say, okay, I might not see it on the depth chart right now, but there must be something he sees to make him think that we're going to have a serviceable D line in this 3-3-5 and it'll work. So I'm excited in that when we get to that Thursday night opener against UAB, we get to see an offense that I think will cook in a decent number of these games. I think that you will see a defense that at least has an identity. And I think the defense ultimately, even worst case scenario, will be a wash from last year, meaning in certain categories, they might be worse than last year. But we lived through last year. That team went 9-4 with that stanky defense. I just feel like the floor has been raised enough where I'm not as concerned about a 5-7. If that were to happen, it would be not a red alarm, but it would be more just like, okay, well, let's get back to the drawing board quick here and not do what we did last year. But I do think that this was very premeditated from Bielema. I think that 3-3-5 thing, how quickly that was the pivot and out of nowhere suggests to me that this was something that had been in the works for a while. And what the heck, you know, give it a shot. And the cool thing about Illinois football is I don't need them to be Indiana. I don't need them to compete year in, year out for college football playoffs. I think this is a stopgap year before you get some of those really good prep classes, before you see a multi-year quarterback with Carson Boyd, who I'm really excited about. And I think they have enough in this stopgap year to win 7 or 8 games and make us feel like, oh yeah, we're good. Not great, not elite, but we're good and we're on solid footing for hopefully greater things in the next couple years.
It is interesting because it feels like for football, it's like a lot of the weaknesses or concerns could be flipped as strengths. Kind of like you said, it's like people are really concerned about the defense and, oh my gosh, what if we give up a lot of rushing yards? It's like, Well, yeah, so that'd be like what we've been dealing with
Like
the
last
last
year?
few, like last year. And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, we're retooling the offensive line and bringing in some new pieces. It's like there was a handful of games last year where the O line was objectively bad. And the D line thing, that's kind of hard to justify. But again, the new scheme is supposed to help smaller, non as dominant defensive linemen thrive. So yeah, I think, and even if Bielema's done so much now and the way he talks, I just love how confident he is. Even if something crazy happens, Xavier Scott, Matthew Bailey, Hauser gets hurt and you go 5-7, I would not be scared like, oh crap, here we are again. It would be
Yeah.
like, that was a bummer. We're gonna be back. Last question for you. So I'm looking at the schedule right now. Some interesting games. You got Thursday, couple Fridays late in the season. Do you have a game or two you're really looking forward to? You're for sure going to go to have a big tailgate, just going to be a great matchup, anything like that?
I like Friday night against Nebraska. I
Yeah.
like that.
November 6th.
Yeah, and I love Iowa. Anytime Iowa's on the schedule, I think that the certain games that are sort of the weird, kind of the swing games. I don't know why at Michigan State is throwing me off. It just Fitzgerald's such a little dough-faced. God, I can't stand that individual. I even told my wife, like, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not even like from afar going to be rooting for Michigan State football. I hope you guys lose every single game. I can't do it. I hate that man. As much, not like, actually, you know what? No, I do. Fine, I do. How's that?
There you
I
go.
strongly dislike Pat Fitzgerald because he embodies everything I hate about, like just, and the fact he was at Northwestern. And I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent. Nebraska Friday night will be fun.
Yeah.
Iowa Saturday in November, great. Cold weather, Iowa, first 1 to 12 wins. I not looking forward to Ohio State. It's just one of those things where why even bother? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, play the game, but I'll be watching, but I'll be ready during the second half if I need to have another game on for the commercials, just flip back and forth. But I do think, though, that this opening part of the schedule really allows for you, especially with Duke losing Menza, to kind of have, for the first time in a while, a non-conference where you don't maybe have a landmine. I'm sorry, Manny Diaz doesn't scare me at Duke. Maybe I'll eat my words, but he just doesn't. And with Menza going to Miami. And I think one last thought I had about this team and kind of where this program's at, you know how sometimes PJ Fleck at Minnesota, he's like the perpetual 7-5, 8-4 guy. And you're like, how? And it's like, well, he's a solid coach and they have decent talent and they just don't make a lot of mistakes. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what can I count on from a Brett Bielema team? All right, well, they're going to be well coached and the talent's decent and they don't make a whole lot of mistakes. And in this day and age with college football, I know they don't have the top NIL budget and they aren't maybe competing for some guys like the Blue Bloods are, or the top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten, but they're right firmly in that top half of the Big Ten in terms of resources and certainly coaching. And as this goes on, Isaac, this NIL era, I do think that you're going to see a wider spread between, let's say, the Illinois and, quite frankly, the Northwesterns of the world. I mean, how long can a David Braun sustain something like that when they just can't afford anything? I just take a little bit of solace in the fact that, not that I want this program to be Minnesota under PJ Fleck. Brett Bielema's done more than that already. But I do feel like your floor might look something more like that than the 5-7s that we got accustomed to. And to me, living through so many of those years in the past, that is excitement enough as we get into the fall.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to definitely get sick of. I mean, the bowl games have been such a blast the last few years, and it would take me a lot to get sick of even like going to the Pinstripe Bowl next year or something like.
This would be a great year for that.
Yeah.
7 or 8 wins, go to the Pinstripe Bowl. I think the peak for this year would be getting invited back to Tampa. I think that there's enough time that has passed where if you were to get a 9-win season, that they would maybe take a look at Illinois again, because that's pretty good Illini fan base down in Florida. But no, doesn't this feel like, Pinstripe Bowl kind of year, or maybe the Duke's Mayo Bowl? I think that's an every other year thing in Charlotte. Like that seems totally reasonable and attainable for this team.
Yeah, maybe we could be the Iowa, but opposite from our offense is always really solid and strong, but our defense is kind of lacking.
Yeah. That's
instead
fine.
of having a horrible offense and amazing defense. But well, Carp, this has been absolutely a blast. I've loved hearing, just more about why you decided to hang it up and future fandom, other ventures you got going on. So it's always a blast. Thanks so much for jumping on.
I appreciate it, man. Good to see you, Isaac.
Yeah, you too. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This is the Champagne Room Live, and make sure to like, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. And we will talk to you next time.